would you? So hypothetically, if you were to have a child, would you prefer to put them in the Western system or the Japanese system?
Man, that's hard. I really think that like in elementary school they do learn so many really good life skills in Japan.
Such as,
Uh,
what would you feel that would be
for one, working in a team, working as a
teamwork?
group, doing things not just for yourself, but for the betterment of other people, like the way that they serve lunches to their classmates and things like that. There are lots of really good things about that they do in Japan. But at the same time, that can be at times to the detriment of like developing their own personal character. I think as an American, like that's what we focus on growing up,
Yeah.
is developing and finding out who you are.
Yeah, as an
You know,
individual.
what you like, what your skills and what your interests are and things like that. So, we focus a lot on writing out our reports of like, I did this, I like this. And it's not that they don't do that in Japan as well. They do some of those things, but a lot of the big events throughout the year are actually like group events, that you're doing things in a team to accomplish a goal or something like that, which is great. So, if you could make some like Franken school, and where you took some of the Western concepts of individuality and expressing your opinion and things like that, and mesh it with Japan's system of doing things as a group and not being too selfish about things as well. I think you could really make like this like perfect system, but
You need a hybrid.
Yeah,
Think of
so,
like a hybrid system between the two.
it would be nice. But I wouldn't hesitate to have my kids in a Japanese school.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so either. I
No.
think I definitely see the benefits. Just because I see how things are ran here, it's like just not just in school, but outside of school, how organized, how ridiculously organized some of the things are here in Japan, and how willing to help people are. And they're very selfless most of the time. I mean, think about it. You can't even find a garbage most of the times. Like that was the one thing that shocked me when I'm in Japan. It's like
Right.
where's the garbages, right? Oh, you're supposed to put it in your pocket and take it home and then throw it out there.
And
Do people do that?
Yeah, and
Do
people
people
do
really
that.
do
People
that?
do do that.
Like, that's the question, right? Really? Like, is
Right.
this, are you lying? It almost sounds like a prank.
But you might have some like unique insight into this, because like even as far as the education things go, like if I were to have a kid, it would be in a multicultural household, and I feel like if I send them to a Japanese school, that's great, but like at the end of the day, their education is not done when the school day is done, because there are things about my culture,
Yeah.
my language and whatnot, that it's my responsibility to teach them as an American living in Japan. There are things, the way that I grew up and things that I would want them to know or whatnot, or things that I would want to grow into them as well. But I mean, isn't that not how you grew up in Canada as well? Like with parents who maybe came from a different culture. So, you're going and you're seeing the way things are done in Canada at school and everything like that. But, you go home, your parents might have been thinking a completely different way than you were being taught, like where you had to like learn about your culture as well outside of what you were doing at school.
For me, what happened was, well, being born from Hong Kong, so my parents were just used to the Hong Kong way of doing things.
Right.
And back when my parents, my generation, went to overseas and immigrated, it wasn't there wasn't that many immigrants in Canada in the first place. So they were like almost like the first ones. They didn't really have anyone to talk to ask, and stuff like that. So they were just expecting like, okay, well, things are going to be similar. And in Hong Kong, because the system is so strict and so tough, after the system takes care of everything. Once you're home, you do your homework, and if you do your homework and you do well, it'll be fine.
Right.
My parents are like, why do you not have any homework? I'm like, I don't know why, right? They just didn't understand, and they went to talk to my teachers, and then my teachers like, oh, that's your job. You can yeah, and I wasn't caught up because I didn't speak English
Right.
when I first came. So I didn't speak anything. And how do you learn without speaking the language, right? You
Right.
can't do math. You can't do anything. So my parents were just shocked. Like, what do you mean I have to teach though? You're the teacher. And then they
Do
just,
your job.
Yeah, basically, you're just like, do your job, bitch. Right? But then I remember my parents talking about it after when we get home. They're like, what are these lazy teachers? We have to do it ourselves. And that's what they did. I had to like sit beside my mom after school when all my friends were out riding bikes on the street, playing soccer, in the backyard. And I studied English fucking grammar,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hated English so much because it's just so much of the English language didn't make any sense. Like there's rules,
Right.
Like I don't know, I know how to speak it now, right? It's like, oh, let's just say, for example, very easy example, like past tense. It's like, oh, you just add ed to
Right.
the word, right? Ed. So like
That's great until
I
you
passed.
get to
Yeah, and then
eat.
yeah, yeah, and then there's like
eat. What's this? It's eat it. It's eat it. I know this rule. You taught it to me, Mom.
Why is it 8? And then there's all these like what are they called, like non-common, uncommon, whatever, right? Uncommon because it's no longer ed. It's like eat
Like
8.
irregulars and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
like that, right? It's like what? And then that's just one. That's just one thing. So
Right.
you have to memorize all these other words, but then I guess language is just always like that, right? It always has exceptions to the rule. But yeah, that was how I basically had to after school just go through school again in a more crammed manner because it wasn't just language. It was like English, it was Chinese, it was math, it
Right.
was everything. It was everything. So I had to do school all over again.
Like, looking at where I am at my life now, like I don't have a kid, or I'm not doing those things now, but if I were to have one, like I really understand where your parents are coming from. Like they come from a culture, and at the time, like when you're living there, you might notice some of the bad things or some of the things you disagree with if they're in your face, but it's not until you go somewhere where they do things very differently that you realize, oh, wow, actually some of these things that I thought were normal or good, or I never even thought about, honestly, that coming over here, it makes me think about those things. Were they good? Were they bad? Were they whatever? So yeah, I guess it's a universal feeling, right? Like they wanted to make sure that you were getting the education that you needed, that they thought you needed based on where they'd come from, what their ideas were and everything like that. And they felt like, okay, Canada might be great in all these different areas or things, but they're not doing enough here, or the teachers aren't doing enough to set you up or help you out or whatever. And so, they took it upon themselves to do that when they were expecting the teachers to do that. And it's the same thing here for me. Honestly, if I were to have a kid and they went to a Japanese school, no matter how great I think Japanese schools are or anything like that, like at the end of the day, there are certain things that I would have to teach them and that they wouldn't be able to learn from a Japanese teacher or a Japanese school system or things like that. And it would be on me to do that and find a way that it was like fun and engaging to do that as well. So they're not like you sitting outside like, I hate English grammar, like I would want them to enjoy it,
Yeah.
So like,
But that would be much easier because I mean, your kid would just be born hearing English all the time, right? So they would automatically pick
it
it
is
up.
truly multicultural in the
Exactly.
household, where it's not like coming from one thing where your parents are only doing everything the Hong Kong way. And
yeah, and of course my parents are not going to speak to me in English
Right.
when I'm at home. They're just going to speak to me in Chinese, right? So that's that's the way your kid is going to be. I don't think you need to sit down and teach them grammar.
I
They'll
thought
just
you were-
automatically know grammar.
No, I just kind of assumed you're going to be like, there's no one else on the farm, so they're going to have nothing else to do but study. It's like, it's going to be school and chores. That's all that they've got. School and chores, school and chores.